Call the City Council work session to order. Clerk, please call the roll.
Steelgrave. Here. Vining. Here. Germaini.
Here.
Here.
Excused.
Hader.
Excused. First item is
Be any public comment?
any public comment? Any comments from those present here this evening? Any public comments? Seeing none. Next item, please.
Next item is under the work session agenda, item 5726, review of draft lease agreements for ALCC expansion.
Manager Robinson, I see we have two items. Any comments or?
Your Honor, the first one's this, it's the review of the draft lease agreements for the ALCC expansion. And as we are all excited, as we get close to the opening, et cetera, Director Cochran would like to be able to kind of go through the draft lease agreements for you so that there's understanding from council as well as there's been understanding through the leasees.
Thank you. I see Director Cochran's going to the page there.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, City Council, Clerk Treasurer Lavoie. So as the city manager indicated, it's starting to feel real. Hopefully after your tour last week and the week before, getting to see the spaces, it's all coming together and walls are going up and fixtures are starting to go in. We are moving closer and closer to move-in day for everybody. And so now that you've been able to walk the space and familiarize yourself with the spaces that are starting to get enclosed, we wanted to walk through with you the draft lease agreement, get any comments and feedback that you have so far. We did meet 2 weeks ago, I believe, with Stephanie Kasperzak, Nancy Belair, and the director of the Learning Bank, Kim, to also walk through this lease agreement for them to prepare to wrap their head around what it's going to be like when that building is opened and open to the public. And so the lease agreement is set up where it would be one lease agreement for all three. So right now, the way it's set up is we have an operating agreement with the library for the Navarre branch of the Monroe County Library System and a funding agreement with the library. And then we also have the same with Monroe County Opportunity Program for the Opportunity Center, where they have a lease as well as a funding agreement where the city pays them to operate the community center for us. That both have been revised over the years. And so the fun challenge that we had was to try and put all of those together. Certainly the library has many branches throughout Monroe County, and they like to have one common agreement for all the branches, but this is a very unique situation. Given this is a building that all the users will have both their own dedicated space as well as the ability to share and utilize the entire building. And so this is the lease agreement revision that would be applicable to all three. And then we will also do a funding agreement revision with both the library service or system as well as MCOP. And those we haven't gotten completed yet. So for the Learning Bank, because right now they are occupying a building that is owned by First Merchants Bank, but they are operated under the auspices of Monroe Public Schools. They have an agreement between themselves. And so they would be a new party, given they are moving into the new city facility. And certainly you saw their space in your most recent tour. So thought for a first logical step would be to go over the map of the building, who's got responsibility over what spaces, what's shared, what's not. And so this is the very last page in the lease agreement that was in your packet this evening. And we've also got it up on the screen for those here today. So the first page, we will start in the existing building on the lower level. And so this is in the building that is still standing, the portion of the building that's still standing and operated right now. This is where the community room and the kitchen are. And so much of this space where you see pink or red, depending on how it shows up on the screen, If there are diagonal lines, that is dedicated shared space. And if there are the vertical lines that you see, that is community space or shared space that all operators in the building in the community would be able to use and share together. And so mainly on the first floor, you'll see the dedicated space that is solely not shared by all users is the, at the bottom, the health hub. So that is the health hub, community health hub that is operated by MCOP in the Opportunity Center. And that includes the health exam rooms as well as the offices. And so that's more private space, dedicated space for the health hub. And then moving into the community room, across the hall, there's a conference room that right now is the workout room. That is going to be shared space as well that anybody will be able to utilize and run programs in. And then you move into the large community room where right now Joe's Boxing Club practices, as well as they have a lot of senior programs. That's shared space. And then as you move left here into the kitchen that the city renovated several years ago, the kitchen, the dishwashing area, all of that, that's going to be able to be used by all users as well in shared space. However, some of the storage rooms and the community pantry, those will remain as dedicated space that MCOP will operate. And so the green spaces that you see as we go throughout the floor layout, that's all city spaces that we will own and operate and maintain. Primarily, that's the elevator, the mechanical room, the electrical room, not really functional, usable space for anything, but nonetheless our responsibility to maintain. And then as we go upstairs, when you go through the current entry, to the left is the offices for MCOP. That's their dedicated office space. And then there is another office to the right. But the rest of the area, except for this area of gymnasium storage, that's going to be all public space or shared space that anybody can operate or reserve for community programs. So that's the existing building. And I'll talk as we go through the agreement, what does shared space and dedicated space mean, and how do those relate to each other. So now try and think back to 2 weeks ago when you toured the building, in the new entrance where we walked in. Primarily the new addition of the building is going to be operated by the library and the library system. So when you walk in on the first floor, much of it is that open space that is operated by the library, but it will be able to be used for programming outside of normal library operating hours by any of the other users of the building. And we'll talk about how that's going to work as we go through the agreement itself. But generally the first floor, including that large room in the middle, that creator space or that meeting space, when the library is not using it, other people will be able to utilize it, as well as some of the more relaxing lounge area. I think on the tour, it was referred to as like the living room space, right? And then the green spaces, again, that's the elevator. This one at the top is the restroom that is accessible only from the outside via Labor Park. That will be maintained by the city as we do all the other park restrooms throughout the rest of the park system. And then the mechanical room. And then moving upstairs, we've got the learning bank space in this lighter blue shade. I don't know what you call that, but it's a lighter blue shade that is dedicated and only for the use of the learning bank. So the learning bank, through their accreditation, their licensing, they have to have secure space to proctor tests and hold classes and things of that sort. So that is not considered shared space, but rather dedicated to the exclusive use of the learning bank. And then upstairs, you'll see the darker shade of blue with these vertical lines. That again moves into the shared space that's operated by the library system. And then the darker blue space with the diagonal lines is the library offices. So again, that's dedicated library office space. And then the two, we call them incubation labs upstairs, the large room that's separated by the garage door in the middle. In meeting with MCOP and the library system and the learning bank, it was agreed upon. Everybody thought that's, we'll allow MCOP the opportunity to manage that space, even though it's going to be shared space and available for anybody to use. And then the outdoor terrace and the rooftop terrace, we are treating that as an extension of Labor Park, where the city is going to be responsible for maintaining that and operating it. And we'll talk a little bit more about what that's going to look like in the lease agreement. And then the mezzanine space over top the gym on the second floor, that is also shared space under MCOP's responsibility, much like the lower level of the gymnasium. So we can always keep referring back to this if we need to as we go through the agreement itself. But so going through, again, this would be a template that we use for all three operators. Obviously, I'm not going to read word for word, but mainly hit the high points for you in reviewing the agreement itself. But on the first page, much of it talks about this is, the city built this as part of the grant that we got from the state for the purposes of efficient delivery of programs and services for the community and for the benefit of the community. And all three organizations, MCOP and the library system and the learning bank, desire to further development of the ALCC and the delivery of different programs, including educational, nutritional, social health, and recreation programs. So it's your typical preamble that lead into agreement. The premises is the building and the entire property around the building, so the exterior, including the parking lot. But Labor Park, so as a refresher for you, as part of the agreement that we have with MCOP, they operate Labor Park on the city's behalf. So they keep it clean, they empty the trash for us, they manage all the programming in Labor Park. And so because we're treating the terrace as an extension of Labor Park, MCOP as part of that agreement will also operate the outdoor terrace for us. So does that make sense? So they manage it for us. But also the agreement does state that everybody's got the right to use it. For the terrace, much like Labor Park, the agreement, the library system and the learning bank would have first right and priority over anybody else in trying to utilize and program that space. Any questions on that? Okay. Going on to page 2 of that agreement, it talks about the learning bank and Monroe County Library System. They will have the right, again, to use Labor Park and the terrace as well, as long as they give MCOP 2 weeks notice or as reasonable as they can accommodate. Certainly if it's not being used and an event pops up, the learning bank would like to have a study group out there, they can reserve that through MCOP as well. So it's just more trying to manage conflict and give everybody the ability to utilize the space equally. The term of the lease to start, it's 1 year. And when we talked to the operators, we said, let's try and live with this for a year. We'll live through it. We'll see after a year if there's any changes we need to make, any updates. And then come back perhaps for a longer term. I think right now the library agreement is from 2018 and the MCOP lease agreement, I believe, is over 2 or 3 years old at this point. So the intent is for 1 year, but it can always be, if everybody says this is going great, it's working well, we can all agree to extend it for another year without bringing the agreement back to City Council. So rent and taxes, because it's the community center and also in accordance with the agreements that we have already, the rent is $1 a year for all the users because they're operating the facility on our behalf. But if there is any taxes they have to pay on personal property, this is just standard language. They're responsible for paying that. But all three are nonprofits, so they're exempt. One thing to call out is number 4, and that's the utilities for the building. So right now, this is handled a little bit differently for all of the operators. The city pays the utilities for the library system right now. MCOP is billed the utilities for the existing Opportunity Center building right now, but we pay them through their funding agreement enough to cover those utilities. So we pay directly for the library, we pay MCOP to pay the utilities, and this includes the water bill for the splash pad at Labor Park because it's all on one meter. For ease of trying to figure all this out, as well as because everybody is sharing the whole building, we're consolidating that down where the city will just be build the utilities and pay the utilities rather than separate it out for each of the users and try and figure out you're responsible for the lights in this building and consolidate it all together. Maintenance requirements. So for the dedicated space that each user has, where it was their own dedicated sole space, they're required for maintaining that on the day-to-day. That's cleaning, that's taking out the trash, vacuuming, reserving or managing the schedule for the spaces, just like they are now. So nothing changes there for their dedicated space. I know the library system has a cleaning crew that they pay to come through. MCOP has, I think, a fixture that we're all well aware of. That's Scott, who helps maintain their facility. And so that does not change. One thing that to keep in mind in the existing library agreement and MCOP, we do provide them funding for that service. So we'll work with them on what the estimated cost for that maintenance is going to be and have that addressed in each of their separate funding agreements that you'll review in the future. Now, any damage that they do to the building, just like now, they're responsible for repairing that. The maintenance also includes the cyclic replacement of carpet, paint, and any damage to fixtures. So that's consistent with their current agreement as well. In the library agreement, the city is responsible, and this is the same for both Dorsch and Navarre. We're responsible for providing the shelving for the library. And so, as you saw with the construction, we're providing that as part of this expansion project. So all of that will be provided by the city, but it will remain the property of the city. But certainly the library, if they want to add any, it doesn't detract them from being able to purchase their own furniture fixtures. With the addition, we're providing new furniture for the entire facility as part of the grant that the city received. So that includes furniture for the learning bank, as well as the shared space and the library space, where really all they have to bring is their books, their computers, and even their office furniture is also being provided as part of the package. Capital maintenance, just as we do right now for any of the library, for Dorsch and Navarre, as well as the ALCC, we meet with each of the directors when we start developing the capital improvements program. And as they're the ones living in the building and have a better understanding of what the needs of the facility is or are, every year as part of CIP, we sit down with them and ask them what are some improvements that we need to consider for this facility to bake into the capital improvements program that the city will be responsible for. So the lease agreement calls out, the city is responsible for basically the structure itself, the foundation, the walls, the windows, the parking lot lighting, the mechanical equipment, all of that is called out as our responsibility. The other thing that we're doing with all of our city facilities, each building has previously been on its own fire monitoring system. Some use different programs and different services. Same with elevator contracts across the entire city organization. We're standardizing that for all buildings, whether it's this building, Dorsch Library, the Battlefield Education Center. So we take over the fire monitoring and those calls when they come in, come to the city, as well as the operators. And then the elevator contracts will all be on one contract as well. So we're not trying to figure out between 3 different operators, 3 different buildings, who do we call for which repairs. So that's also included in the city's responsibility. Any questions so far?
What about maintenance of the parking lots? Does the city take care of all that?
Yep, and I believe that's coming. So the sidewalks, the landscaping, the mowing, and the parking lots, we handle the snow removal, as well as the planting and the mowing, and all of that will remain our responsibility.
Yeah, it's the line right before capital maintenance.
Oh, thank you. I missed that. Good question. Okay, moving into, the shared space. How is this going to be operated with 3 different people? So this is a conversation we've been having with all 3 leaders for well over a year as we prepare for how this is going to work. And so each of those dedicated shared spaces, whether it's the library shared space like the first floor or the gymnasium or the community room, or the kitchen, each one is going to have the day-to-day operational responsibility to taking care of that space. If the library would like to host a program and they need to use the kitchen and the community room, they will just coordinate that with MCOP as it's their responsibility. MCOP will be responsible for cleaning that space, and much the same with the library. So that's why we had each of the spaces called out in terms of whose responsibility it is. We're also working with them for the system we use here at the city for reserving rooms with a Google Calendar, where anybody can log on, see the calendar, if it's free, if it's not free, and place the reservation via the calendar. So like right now, if we wanted to reserve the first floor conference room, we would do a calendar invite and reserve that room. Don't even have to talk to anybody. And that is the same way our parks are. So if you try reserving one of the shelters at one of our parks, you can go onto the parks website and it will show when the shelters are free or busy, and submit your reservation to our office, and we secure your reservation. So we're looking at some efficiencies in technology to be able to work through that. We do have, of course, the language that every operator has to make all necessary accommodations to allow others to use the space when it's not being used. And then if MCOP uses one of that makerspace room on the first floor of the expansion and they make a mess, they're required to clean it up. Even though that's the library space for normal maintenance and cleaning, you're responsible to return that room into the condition in which you found it. If there are disputes, and certainly the way that the conversations have been going with everybody's excited to work together to maximize the space. But if there are disputes, the language and the agreement, they've got to try and work it out themselves. And if they can't, then the city manager has the final say, and so it shall be. So that language is in letter E in that section. So again, we're going to continue to meet with them even after the opening to make sure everything's operating smoothly, that things are going well. And I know, I understand the staff at MCOP and the library have already begun discussions, like for Young Authors Camp and other things, on how they can collaborate and work together. Any questions on that? Okay. The rest of it is your standard MapBud special language that you see in many of our other agreements. And I won't walk through, but I will call out a few things. Signage, the city is providing the signage on the building. So when you did your tour last week, you probably saw the new sign that is going over the main entry of the existing building. I believe this week or next week, the new signs are going up on the addition. And we've reviewed those and gone over those and gotten the blessing of each of the operators in terms of how that looks and what the language is. But I know one of the questions that came up is if we want to have a banner up or, promote an event, are we allowed to do that? And the answer is absolutely yes. You just have to check with us and obviously follow all the sign ordinances. So no signage that's not previously approved on the property. And then finally, on page 6, number 13, financial information. This is something that we've required from everybody that we give funding to or that operates any of our facilities. Before April 1st of each year, each of the operators have to provide the city with a copy of their financial statement, including balance sheet, that has been approved by their governing board and submitted to the city manager. So you see these already. MCOP's comes in quarterly. The library system submits theirs to us, and so we don't foresee any problems. But that's just so we make sure that everything's kosher and on the up and up with everybody's finances. Insurance requirements, again, each of the tenants right now is required to have a certain level of liability insurance, and that's included in number 16. And the rest of it is, we won't destroy the building, we won't up and leave without telling you. If we've got the right to access the property, and then everybody will follow the law when they're operating our building, and it will be effective the date that it's signed. And then again, good for a period of 1 year. So it's a lot, but we thought we would walk through because it is very non-traditional for any of our buildings or any of our other facilities to have this. So you take a look. If you don't have questions today, I know each of the leaders is covering this lease with their legal counsel as well as their boards as we move closer. But certainly we would like to have this approved within the next month because we're looking forward to the groundbreaking when everybody will start ribbon cutting, when everybody will start moving in.
Thanks, Mark. We'll see if there's any questions. I'm going to start with one. I'll just comment on the definitions on the shared space. As I read through this, I found that to be, and it matched to the maps. When you looked at the ledger to the right, top right corner, talks about, what is a responsibility, what is shared space, what is dedicated space. So it really kind of, that back and forth is easy, to understand for me. I thought about then application of that, and it's probably going to take time to learn what room might be what. And I just wonder if there's some kind of either template or color code or something you're going to use to help out that learning curve, I'll say, for everybody to understand, no, I think this is ours, and they want to go back to this, but maybe even just a little card or something that says, that what those spaces are. Maybe you've thought of that already, though.
One of the appreciate that. One of the ways that we've been working through some of those questions, the whole building is getting rekeyed, or obviously the new addition is going to have keys. And so during last week's meeting, we numbered every room, and we talked with the operators about who needs what key in the shared space, the exterior doors. And so, the library they will be the only ones that have the key to their offices. But the rest of the shared spaces will all be on a shared key that everybody will have access to. And so some of that is going to be worked out in the security policies and the key policy. But we haven't talked about signage yet. So thank you for that.
So I have one more, because I know it came up on the tour that Michelle and I were on, and Michelle. And you talked about the restroom that's outside, that is the responsibility of the city. But the conversation on that door that is exit only, and some, I'll say, safety items, because if it gets propped open, things are going to happen. I know that the public safety will do the tour at the end of the day to make sure things are secure that way. But I think about the library side of it, because they're on the first floor. I mean, they could see the front door, but that back door is not visible. And we know we're going to have people going out, but tendency will be, I'll be right back, hold the door for me type thing. And then somebody forget about it or prop it open. I know you talked about that during the tour. Any further thoughts on that, or to share with maybe it came up in the other groups, I don't know.
Yeah, and security was a great item to bring up. So we do have, the city is installing cameras on the entire exterior of the building that will be tied in with our security system. The interior of the library is going to have their own camera system that their IT is working through, and then MCOP also has their camera system. But in terms of the doors where there may not be direct sight, and this includes the terrace upstairs as well as that exterior door that opens toward Labor Park, those are going to have alarms on them. So if those do open when they're not supposed to be open, there'll be the opportunity, and there'll be an audible alert that the door is open to be checked on.
I have one more, because I thought about it during the tour, because in on the first floor, that, I think you call it like the family type open room, the door that's there, which goes out to the little courtyard, and it is really a direct access to go to the center, or the center of the LCC. I remember it was mentioned about that there's the possibility to exit there, but again, looking at it from the library staff point, security of not somebody coming in that way where they wouldn't see it immediately. So I'm sure the same security will be on that door as well.
Yep. Yep, correct. So the intent is for the only entries that will be open and accessible at all times will be the existing main entry at the existing building, and then the main vestibule that we all walked through as part of our tour last week.
Okay. So the two I mentioned are like maybe like exit only. Okay.
Yep.
That's what I have right now. Let's see if there's other
I have another
questions. Michelle?
So if you're in the shared space and there's damage, who is accountable to fix the damage if it's shared space?
Yeah, it depends on, I guess, who was operating the space at the time that it was damaged. So if one of the other users is using shared space, that's the responsibility of the library, and they damage it, it would be their responsibility. And if the library is using the space and for some reason something gets damaged, it would be their responsibility.
Okay.
Other questions or thoughts? Deb?
So right now, that's the responsibility of the tenant or the occupant. But given the size of those windows, I know we have a service that comes and cleans them here. That's something we can work through as well.
Thanks. Other questions or comments? Well, there's a lot of information here, a lot of, looking through the maps and stuff, or I should say the renderings or drawings. I appreciate the presentation, information, and I think you're correct. I think the first year will kind of tell the tale and the opportunities in which it presents for all the tenants. And I would think that you're going to have a meeting not at the end of the year, but sometime through to maybe just, first quarter. Have we identified something that needs adjustment now instead of waiting to the end of the year? And other things may be coming under review, and I'm sure there'll be each of the tenants will have some thoughts.
Yeah, right now we meet monthly with each of the leaders, and we're going to continue to do that monthly until we feel things are smooth and everything's going great.
Okay. I was going to ask when, but I think we'll wait for that for later, when that might come to be.
The what?
Time frame?
Oh, yes, we're still looking at that, but right now I think we're on target for an opening at the end of April. We did send a save the date out just to keep holds on everybody's calendar, but I know each of the operators is also checking internally to see if they have any conflicts on that date too.
Great. Yep. Kelly?
So, I know Woody talked about artwork and murals and painting. So they expect all that to be done by April?
Yeah, so the intent is when we do the ribbon cutting, that day and that day forward, it will be open and available for everybody. So I know one of the conversations that we had with Nancy Belair, obviously the library has to move from its temporary location into its new location. IT needs to get in and set everything up and wiring and cabling, and I believe they're coordinating that to start relatively soon. But yep, the intent is, I believe furniture is scheduled the week of March 23rd. And then we've got the punch list before certificate of occupancy, and we want to make sure as much of that is wrapped up as possible so that when we have the celebration, it's open and ready and available for everybody to use.
Okay. If there's no other questions now, and of course, as you go through this or have some, please, reach out to the manager, and then I'm sure Mark will be available to answer some additional questions if you have them. Thanks so much. We have another item, and I think, Mr. Cochran, you're going to go through that. Is that correct, Manager? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, moving on to St. Mary's Park. So this was one of the priorities that we discussed with you at your goals and objectives session earlier this year. But of course, we know that this is the year we're scheduled to complete the park portion of the project. Last year, the parking lot was pretty much completed. There's still some things that are remaining left to do. The weather kind of hindered from getting completed before the end of the year. Some planting, some of the pergolas, some of those things. And I know I do apologize. This is very small because these are the construction documents for going out to bid. And so what you've got in front of you is just the site plan portion. But certainly if you would like to review the full 100-page bid set that includes grading, electrical, all the trades, we can show that as well. But the first page that you see, and we'll zoom in on this on the screen so that you can see it a little bit closer. But this is the parking lot that was majority completed. The portion of the project that starts phase 2 is really, and I don't know if you can see, but right down this line here on the other side of this pergola in, I guess, macaroni shaped or half moon shaped plaza right here. So everything west of this hardscape work, west of the MLK Bridge, is what is going to be planned to be bid out in the coming months, or coming weeks, I'm sorry, for completion later this summer. And we can talk about timing a little bit. But wanted to call out, perhaps familiarize you with some things that aren't done on the existing phase that are still yet to come. And so all the concrete work has been completed. What has not gone up yet is the pergolas. So those have been delivered. But we're waiting to finalize a couple details relative to the center plaza here, the pergola there with the lotus in the middle, as well as the seating here. The benches and the tables also that you can see here underneath that pergola have all been delivered, but they will be installed when spring comes. The food truck drop-off area is completed. The other thing, a couple things to look ahead to, I think we've talked about the park signs will all be getting replaced this spring. All the park signs, most of them, as well as some of the gateway signs that were funded. St. Mary's Park will be installed once the project is complete, but that's going to go in this existing location where the existing sign is. And then we've got the bike rack too that will be installed in this location here. Can everybody see my pointer move? Okay. And then the waste receptacles as well that have been ordered that will be installed. The bronze cast lotus is also not installed yet, and that will be part of the work yet to be completed and wrapped up with phase 1 this spring, as well as some of the other planting work and the irrigation work too. So if you drive by the parking lot or visit it, you see some pipes sticking up out of the ground yet. That's the irrigation system that will be installed in the spring to water the landscaping. So the next phase of the project is everything from here over. And wanted to talk you through this so that you've got a complete understanding of what the scope looks like. If there's any changes we need to look at before it goes out to bid. I know there's probably at least one major one that we're looking at that we'll talk through today. But in general, you'll also recall that we did receive a state grant of $950,000 that is helping to fund this phase of the project too. So we need to move ahead and get this out to bid so that funding can be unlocked for us. But generally, when you look at the park plans, any of the dark gray is concrete or hard surface. So the intent with this walkway here, we'll go through a few of the segments here, but the shelter was moved, the picnic shelter was moved over here, and we'll talk about why in a second. And then also the restrooms and the tennis courts and the basketball court is all on the west side. So we wanted to provide, as it's been a goal of the city with the support of city council and administration, to make sure that our parks are available and open and accessible to everybody of all abilities. So we wanted to make sure that if somebody is parking in the parking lot, how do they safely get across the park, access the shelter, access the restroom? Right now, throughout the entire park, the terrain can be rough. It can be full of divots. Of course, it's rather hilly. And so this walkway is meant to provide that access through the park. And then this walkway on the bottom where it says emergency access, what that has meant, if for some reason emergency personnel need to get into the park, that will be the ability. It's wider. That area is 10 feet, whereas the sidewalk or the walkway going through the middle of the park is 6 feet wide. But the emergency access is just for that. There is a bollard right here as you're moving from the main entry dividing sidewalk that can be removed for access. But in generally to prohibit folks from driving on that or driving through the park, that's what that bollard is there for. That's also meant for our concert series and events of the band shell. If you talk to Amy Mason, one of the challenges that we have with bands is they can't drive up to the band shell. Used to be able to, but we've installed irrigation throughout the park. And so when people drive through it, it can damage our irrigation. So we don't allow that anymore. But also because when vehicles drive across the grass through the park, it can damage the terrain and Parks has to go back and restore that. And so we really wanted to provide access from the parking lot that bands or performers or events can drive up, unload, and either drive back out or keep their vehicle there depending on the event in a case-by-case basis. So this walkway through the middle, we mentioned it was 6 feet, but there's this area that's called out as accessible seating. And the intent with that, if you come to our concerts right now, for the most part, if we have handicapped folks or folks who are physically challenged trying to enjoy the concert, they have to stay as close to the parking lot and as close to the handicap parking as possible. We want them to be able to also enjoy concerts from different vantage points or events. And so we gave them in providing an access so that they can get a little closer to the action or in with the crowd as to being relegated to just one corner of the park. That area is a little bit wider, but there's also a short curb because of the grading of the park. There will be a curb, but it won't be a steep drop off. There will be about a 6-inch curb that would prevent anybody from, if they're in a wheelchair, from moving forward and perhaps falling off of that. But the rest of the walkway is at grade with the rest of the park and just like a sidewalk or a trailway through the park. One of the things in previous iterations that we've talked with council about this project is how do we minimize the hardscaping through the park and try and keep it more open and natural without breaking it up. And so we did remove these walkways. If you'll recall, the previous iteration went all the way up to the sidewalk along Elm Avenue. In this iteration, those two were removed, but we're also going to, if council agrees, is remove these two sections of the sidewalk that connect from that walkway down to the stage. Because we know if you're enjoying a concert, it may be distracting to have people going up and down that walkway, but also to keep that open space and that green space open as open park space rather than breaking it up with more concrete or hard surface. And that's also going to help reduce the project costs. So any thoughts on removing just these two walkways from the main walkway down to the stage walkway?
Those walkways exist right now or in this design?
Yeah, just in the design, there's no walkway currently through the park at all, only up on Elm Avenue where the sidewalks are. And then there is a sidewalk that goes near the parking lot and up to the band shell, but it's just a 5 or 6 feet walk that's not able to accommodate vehicles.
So a wheelchair bound or a walker or someone could go around and still access that area.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
I would be for it just because I'm for as much green space in a park as we can get.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think, we want people to be able to access the entire park. So it makes sense to me. We have I'll say where it says emergency access, that, because it's right by the band shell and it's right by the stage. And we know many people gather there and they want to go maybe over to the playscape area or the pavilion and back and forth that way. So that's kind of what happens now. People move along that front edge. The one through the middle gets people across there also. It'll be something new that people will adjust to because people will be sitting, concerns if people just stand there, but I think people will keep moving. I agree with Kelly. The two that kind of cut across between the two, I think it's that you mentioned, Mark, a consideration to remove those. I think that's just extra. That's just going to have more people moving or running or who knows what. I think that's going to be a distraction, especially if you're sitting right by there in the lower area. And if you're in the upper area, you're seeing all that movement when you're trying to kind of watch the activity. So I would agree that, we took them, all those two cross ones from the top. I think they should be removed from the bottom. It still allows people to access the park completely in the same movement there. I don't think there's a need to have additional.
The other consideration with the main walkway that goes completely across is if there is an emergency and for some reason there's a medical emergency in the middle of the park and an ambulance needs to carry a stretcher or remove somebody, rather than having to navigate through a crowd and across the terrain, across the entire park, this walkway gives them a more navigable, safer surface for that purpose as well. This plaza here is another seating area with benches. And so providing these passive seating areas throughout the park while not detracting from the park. So there's 4 benches here as well as a couple of planters for flowers in the park that will complement and match the remainder as well. And then up here along the sidewalk, along Elm Avenue, there's also this seating area that's included with some green space in the middle. If I zoom in, you will see that there is called out there. Let me see. There is a curb here, but it's just about 6 inches. So it delineates the space. There is a little bit of a step down. But again, it's because of the grade at the top of the park going down into the rest of the park that there's a little bit of that height. But there's these tables, and we do have these called out specific tables in the plan that allows people, when there's not an event going on, if they want to gather there and go to Subway across the street and bring their meal over the park, that there's tables throughout the entire park, not just under the pavilion, that's available for people to use. And then also some additional benches there for seating, whether events or whether you're going down the trail, you want to stop and have a rest, there's that space as well. In these little circles you see, those are garbage receptacles throughout the entire park that match the rest of the park system. So it's no longer the green barrels, but it's more of a decorative waste receptacle. And then one of the things that we are looking at is possibly swapping out the benches and the tables. So putting the tables in the back and the benches in the front, so that if you are sitting at one of these benches looking toward the stage, you're not looking past the tables. And if you're sitting at the table and perhaps you want to socialize or visit, we kind of talked about this with the Altrusa Park plan, having that complimentary seating, but intentional. So we're looking at, and that's not a decision that has to be made with the bid set where those get placed, but it's an option we're looking at. And I don't know if council has any thoughts or feedback on that particular detail.
I think seeing the renderings both ways might help, but if, you get to maybe a rendering of what it would look like, you might end up with one less table if you move them inside. But if you put them on the inside, of course, that'd be in the grass space there, you could have people standing on the other side of the table as well, or sitting. So I'd like to see both probably, to see how it works. Kathy?
The benches, are they just flat benches or do they
Yeah.
have a back?
They do have a back. Yep.
Okay, because I was so which way would you sit? Are you facing into the park then, or?
Yep. So not facing Elm Avenue, but facing the park.
Okay.
Are the tables higher than
So they're 30 inches, so it's about the height of a standard dining room table or picnic table. It's about 30 inches. So they are, the seating on, I did measure it this afternoon, the seating on the chair is the same height as the seating on the bench.
So there's not a high top.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. Continuing to move west through the park. So again, the open space. The purpose for, we get asked a lot why the restrooms are where they're at in the park. Most of St. Mary's Park is in the floodway, which prohibits our ability to build anything in the park itself. But the area that the restrooms are in are the corner of the park that's not in the floodway, and that's why we were able to build them there. And same with the picnic shelter. So we have to go through Eagle and get permits for any structures that you build within the floodway. And so the picnic shelter and the restrooms, we did have to relocate those. The band shell, sorry, I forgot to mention this. The scope of work for the band shell is to rehabilitate it. So we cannot rebuild it. We cannot change it structurally because of the floodway regulations. The only thing they would permit us to do is structural maintenance to it or completely remove it. So we do know the band shell is in desperate need of a new roof, lighting upgrades, some electrical upgrades. Those are things that Eagle has given the sign off to go ahead and do. So that is what will be in the scope of work for the band shell itself. But it's not going to be changed visually in any way. It's not going to be moved or relocated anywhere in the park, primarily because of those floodway concerns. But because of that, because we're not structurally changing it, Eagle permitted us to do that. Because of the location of the sidewalks and the walkways through the park itself, the picnic shelter would have to be moved. And once you remove something, you can't put it back. And so that's why we had to find a new location for it. But also putting it closer to the playground itself and the basketball courts and the tennis courts is also the intent behind the new location. But recall too, on the east side of the park, we were able to add these pavilions too. So this one that I zoomed in on that's part of this current construction, that's got just as much seating as the current picnic pavilion underneath, and it's also covered. So folks will be able to use those just as they do the picnic pavilion near the parking lot right now. So this area where you see playground safety surface, that is where the new playscape is going to be built. It is moved a little bit west of its current location. And the intent with that was we were trying to open up as much of the park as possible for those gatherings, for events. And so moving it west, shifting it west toward the courts, and some of that more active use allowed opening up the lawn space a little bit more for those larger events. And so the playscape will go in the middle here. We don't have it picked out yet, I don't believe, for the new playscape. And then there's these two areas of lawn space on either side of the picnic shelter. And then benches all around the playground as well. So in addition to the picnic shelter, there's also 3 benches called out around the playground. The other thing I forgot to mention so far is the entire fence along the river is also getting replaced with a decorative fence. So that old chain link is coming down, and it will match the fence that's on the south side of the river with the riverfront parking lot, as well as the fence that's going down the parking lot up toward Monroe Street. So all of that will have one cohesive look. Just north of the picnic shelter, again, there's a lawn green space here. And then I know this is a little bit hard to read here, but the restrooms are remaining where they are. Nothing is happening with the restrooms, no improvements there, because they are relatively newer compared to the rest of the park system. What you see right here is another bike rack. So for those accessing from the west or the neighborhood across the street at that crossing, there's going to be another bike rack for those utilizing the courts and the playground. There's also a bike repair station, and we also have a bottle fill station and drinking fountain that will be installed in this area as well, in addition to the benches you see and trash receptacles that will also be in this area as well. And then trash receptacles also around the playground and the picnic shelter as well. And then the courts themselves are getting completely redone because at a previous meeting, we went through the dam rehabilitation project that's happening in the River Raisin. There will be a new pump station that's installed in this area in the northwest corner of the park. And so there'll be another type utility box that's in this location. But that work necessitates tearing up the tennis courts and the basketball courts. So that work is going to get underway, I believe, late spring, summertime. So that area will be disturbed sooner than the rest of the park will. But that also allows us to completely redo the tennis courts and the basketball courts as we intended with this project too. So again, those coordination of infrastructure projects that we talk about through water, wastewater engineering and parks too. So the tennis courts will get completely rebuilt and resurfaced, as well as the basketball courts and new fencing going around it as well. This will be a 4-foot fence along the eastern edge of the tennis courts and the basketball courts, and then a 10-foot fence along the north edge along Elm Avenue, the western edge, and then again a fence matching, along the river. There will continue to be an emergency access drive, as there is right now near the restrooms, that park staff use to access the restrooms and the courts. That's chained off. And then this new maintenance driveway is also going to be installed, that again is going to be accessible for the pump station repair, as well as park staff there as well. So I misspoke. This one is getting removed. The existing one that's by the restrooms, and it will be replaced by this one that moves further west. Yes. So right now, there's a curb cut or an emergency driveway or a authorized vehicle only driveway about right here by the restrooms. That is going to go away, and this new one is going to be installed closer to the west property line. But again, that's going to be gated and only for authorized staff vehicles only, or if other accommodations are made.
So the emergency access would be only from the parking lot area, from the east, then, if you would drive all the way through?
Yeah, and if need be, emergency access at this location too by the courts.
Wouldn't go very far.
Right, yep. And when we think about most of our major concerts, we close the street too. So we have emergency vehicles that are stationed at Borges and also near St. Mary's. So in those events where we do expect larger crowds and spillover from the park, there's emergency vehicle maintenance. And certainly if there were a large enough incident, they would park in the street or use any means necessary they need to access the scene.
Oh, Kathy?
Maybe I missed this. They look like little flowers. What are those?
Trees. So there's a whole separate landscape plan that goes along with this that talks about the existing trees that are to be saved, new trees that are to be planted, mulch, flowers, annuals, perennials, all of that is on a whole other page that would probably take a work session to go through.
So speaking of trees, I know that some of the trees there were planted through Sister City and also memorial trees. Are those intended to stay?
Yep.
Okay, thanks.
I
Kelly?
was gonna ask about some of those trees gotta be over 100 years old. We're not touching those, are we?
No, I do know that there is one that's going to be impacted on the west boundary of the park as part of the pump station project. But all the other ones we're intending to keep as many as possible, and those have been identified through the landscaping plan. Certainly we know, I believe there is one other one that may be impacted in this area, but we know those are popular for shade during the warmer events. So we're trying to keep as many, and the park was designed to keep as many of those mature trees as possible. Yeah, yep,
So you can spruce it up and everything.
yeah.
I'm just curious, why is Eagle so tough about that? Because saying, oh, if you take something away, you can't bring it back. And
No.
what is the point?
So that's those are regulations that are managed by the federal government as well as the state government, and their intent is they don't want you to build in the floodway and put hazards in the floodway that may prohibit the movement of water in case there is a large flood event. So that's the intent behind it. In some instances, like I said, this is I don't want to use the term grandfathered in, but we weren't allowed to enlarge it by any means or relocate it or move it or anything. The only thing we could do is maintain it or remove it altogether.
So Mark, speaking of removal, up in the upper left corner where the former bocce, but now
Oh, yes,
the
cornhole.
yeah, thanks, cornhole.
Yep.
Is that they're not going to be there, correct?
No, that's getting removed as well. That's really underutilized. And so that's getting restored to this lawn space that you see in front of you.
Question on you said there'd be a ballard so that people just don't walk in or drive in, just the emergency vehicles. What will be the plan to make sure that's available when needed? Like who's gonna have the key or how is that gonna be unlocked?
So an example of that, when you're going out to Sterling State Park on the Heritage Trail between the National Park and the State Park, those bollards just west of I-75, those are removable. So emergency personnel all have keys to those. If they need to get out there, the state park, and I believe our public safety also have those so that they're not calling somebody and waiting for somebody to come and remove those, that they've got the ability to get them up, get them out, and access the scene as quickly as possible.
Yeah, just asking who had the keys so that knowing that they have them, that's good. Thank you.
Yep. And then we're also, through all of our parks, one of the requirements that we're putting in, all projects are facilitating the installation of cameras to expand our camera network and make sure that our parks are safe. And so we're working with public safety as well to identify the appropriate locations for those as part of this project.
Mark, you mentioned about the band shell and electrical work and that. Of course, we have I don't know what more than call it, a small closet that has a key on it. That'll be upgraded versus what's there currently.
Yep.
Yeah, it's probably needed.
Yep. I promised Amy Mason that.
Yeah, it's something that looks better and,
Yep.
and is more functional than it currently is. Thanks.
Is it gonna be digital
What's that?
keypad or
Probably not. That's something we could look at, but
Other questions or comments? Does look good. I appreciate the detail and the time and taking some suggestions here today. I know that we had an opportunity to look at this a while ago, but yet it's coming back closer to conclusion, so opportunities to make any final comments on that, so. Deb?
oh, you read my mind. So the next steps. So these drawings are final, except we will go back based on feedback tonight and remove those two north-south walkways and finalize the plans and get that ready to go out to bid unless we hear otherwise in the next couple weeks, because we do want to get the contractor lined up. The scope, the timing will be similar proposed to what the parking lot project was, and that will be toward the end of summer. I believe what we're looking at in terms of the bid package is after the Monroe County Fair Parade. So in general, that's when most of we've got a couple concerts that are left at that point. And due to, just a word of caution, due to the work that's going to be taking place near the tennis courts and the construction that we're trying to coordinate with that contractor, that portion of the park may be closed off and inaccessible sooner, which may include the restrooms. So one of the things as we're developing our budget for this year is to accommodate more portable restrooms if we have to close those throughout the season, including larger special events, so that we can make sure there's restroom facilities maintained through the duration of the season. But generally, the park construction is we're looking at after the Monroe County Fair Parade.
So Mark, you touched on it because that's kind of like the installation timeline when you talk about the future pump station there, which is up in that upper left corner of the map here. Because that's got to get done before we can do the other stuff, correct? And so that will start early, and as that comes to hopefully completion, then you can work on the rest of it in
Yeah.
the fall, correct?
Yeah. We are updating the lighting with the tennis courts and basketball courts too. I forgot to mention that. Similar to what's installed at Father Carnes Park. No pickleball at this court. No.
Glad you're keeping the courts.
Yeah. That was some of the feedback that we heard through previous presentations with council, as well as the proposed relocation of the band shell. So that was feedback you provided, but our hand was also forced there with the floodway regulations.
Very well. Any other questions or thoughts for Mark or administration? Oh, I know I was going to ask you if you can answer it. I know that the sisters have been talking about their historical marker that's, because this is the original location in which the, I won't say the cabin, and on from there, and the one that was there in early 1900s that burned. But so did they submitted for the historical marker? And
Yep. So the IHM did receive approval for a new state historical marker to recognize the congregation, and they would like to have it installed at this location. So as we were developing these plans, we actually met on the site with the sisters. Jennifer, who's their historian, was a great collaboration partner on this. And so the intent that we've identified, and this will actually be installed, I believe we're looking at March or April, so you'll be receiving an invitation to that dedication. But the location will be right here in this area. This is between the pathway coming down off the Martin Luther King pedestrian bridge, as well as the pathway to the parking lot. And the purpose was the visibility here that it would receive from people coming from the parking lot as well as across the bridge. It's a two-sided marker, so you want to be able to read both sides of it. And so it will be facing north and south. We don't have the exact position of it determined yet, but we do know this will be the location that we worked out with them and incorporated the drawing.
I have one more question.
yes, Kelly.
Over in the parking lot where there's a area for food trucks.
Mm-hmm.
When I went to look at it, I couldn't visualize in my head how would the food trucks be. Would they be lined up to follow that curve, or would they be sticking straight out, or?
Nope. So we accommodate, I believe, 2 food trucks as best as we can, but of course, some are longer than others, some are shorter than others. So we can't accommodate them all. But how they will be stacked up north-south. So the flow will be they pull in off of Elm Avenue, and they should be able to pull in and get tucked in right in this drop-off area. We know there is going to be some logistics with sometimes they need to get pulled by a truck and how we handle that. And so I know Amy Mason's already been coordinating with the different food trucks that she's lining up for this year's events. But it is intended to be here. There was also the intent behind this seating under the pavilion that you can grab food from the food truck, sit there and eat it. Also installing electrical for them to hook up to in this location as well.
And then going east, those are those charging stations or?
These?
Yeah.
No, those are handicap parking spaces. That's a new modernized handicap icon.
I see. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. But that is a great point. So one of the things, they're not installed as part of this project, but in the future, we did have conduit installed with this parking lot in case we want to accommodate EV charging in the future. That was similar. Sorry. That was similar to what we did at the Battlefield parking lot where the conduit for that future connectivity was installed. So if we do that, we won't have to rip it up, but it's not proposed to be installed as part of this project, but perhaps in the future.
Any final questions or comments? Michelle?
I have a question just related to food trucks. So that area seems designed particularly for the concerts. So what is the thought process for events outside of our concerts? Is the thought then that the food trucks would just be on Elm Avenue?
Like with private
Because they
events and
have,
things of
yeah,
that
well,
sort?
the public events that are staged there that aren't city, aren't sponsored by the city.
It depends depends on the event, how large it is. And then kind of like right now, how we direct them where they can set tents up and things of that sort. We would work with them based on what the nature of the event is.
Because many of them have more than 2 food trucks. So,
yeah.
okay, thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Mark. I
Okay,
think that's
thank
it.
you.
Appreciate it much. Manager Robinson, any other comments before we adjourn the work session in preparation of the regular council meeting?
I have no other comments.
Okay. Clerk, anything additional for yourself? All right. So I think at this time, we'll close the work session and prepare for our regular city council meeting. Thank you.
Got 19.
We call the city council meeting to order. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Steelgrave?
Here.
Vining?
Here.
Here.
Excused.
Peter?
Excused.
Mayor Clark?
Here. And I ask we all please rise for the invocation, remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Hear us this evening as we come together in deliberation and fellowship to guide the city and all who call her home.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk, next item, please.
The next item is the approval of the regular agenda.
Thank you. Manager Robinson, any amendments to the agenda?
No amendments, sir.
Any amendments from the council? Seeing none, a motion to approve the regular agenda? Okay.
Make a motion to approve the regular agenda.
I'll second.
Motion from Councilwoman Stringham, supported by Councilwoman Germaini to approve the regular agenda. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Steelgrave?
Yes.
Vining?
Yes.
Jermaine?
Yes.
Stringham?
Yes.
Mayor Clark?
Yes. Next item.
The next item is the consent agenda, and for approval of payments to vendors, the amount should read $1,222,237.89, 1222237.89.
Thank you. Are there items on the consent agenda to be pulled from the, wish to be pulled? Councilwoman Germaini.
Can we pull item number 5711, 5712, and 5671 from the consent agenda and add it to council action, please?
Other items on the consent agenda, council wishes to have pulled? Seeing none, are there any items on the consent agenda, those present here this evening, wish to have pulled for further discussion? Any items on the consent agenda? Seeing some folks here, if there's an item on the consent agenda, if it gets, doesn't get pulled, it gets passed with all items with one vote, other than the three that were already pulled. Any items from those present here this evening for the consent agenda? Seeing none, motion is ordered regarding the consent agenda. Councilwoman Stilgrave.
I'm going to make the motion that all items on the consent agenda be accepted. The ones that are not pulled for further consideration be accepted, placed on file, recommendations carried out, and resolutions be adopted.
Second?
Motion by Councilwoman Stilgrave, supported by Councilwoman Vining, that items not pulled from the consent agenda be accepted, placed on file, resolutions adopted.
Okay.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Steelgrave?
Yes.
Vining?
Yes.
Jermaine?
Yes.
Stringham?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, sorry, Mayor Clark.
It's okay.
I forgot my prayer this evening and I've just been off, so.
Doing great.
Sorry about that. All right, next item. Next item is presentations, communications, and public hearings. Item 5703, public hearing for fiscal year 2026 through 2032 capital improvements program budget.
Thank you. Manager Robinson.
Council, this is scheduled for the public hearing on our capital improvements program. This is basically giving the public the opportunity to comment on the capital improvements program budget that we're seeking for you to approve later in the agenda.
So at this time,
Comments on file in the clerk's office either.
I'll open the public hearing on item 5703. It's the public hearing for fiscal year 2026-2032 capital improvement program budget. Any public comment this evening? See no public comment. This will appear under council action later. I'll close the public hearing. Clerk, next item, please.
The next item is under council action, item 5704, fiscal year 2026 through 2032 capital improvements program budget.
Manager Robinson?
Yes, Your Honor, as the Citizens Planning Commission, this was presented to previously. There was a joint session where council was invited to be involved, where the city worked with all its directors, putting together the capital improvement program. And it actually goes from 2026 all the way to 2032 in the capital improvements. And we've provided that information, and we're seeking council to approve the capital improvements program budget.
Any questions or comments from council regarding this item? I'll just make a comment because I know that when capital improvements comes in, there's a lot of work that's within this plan for those that want to kind of delve into it and see where it's at, but also the order in which streets are going to be done and other infrastructure work this year. And that's planned, as we said, up through to 2032. So, we have items sometimes that have a street that, you think it's coming next year, and then all of a sudden it's not because something else just happens, and trying to get ahead of maybe an unexpected infrastructure project that we need to get done first before the street. So I say that because we have a street evaluation. It's scored, and it's available also on the city's website. The director engineer and city manager drive the streets, I think with another, and they rate that by the condition of the street, but also the condition of the kind of the gutter pans, which is next to the curbs, and also the curbs. And as you compile that all through, it's a street rating. So you can easily see a street that thinks, well, when are they going to fix this one? Well, the one that maybe is a year, could make a year longer somewhere else, but the infrastructure being done. So I use that so we take it in consideration. I know I've had conversation with the manager on a couple of streets, and and that's why it gets done. And so I know with Mr. Lewis, he and his staff look at that very closely. But if you want to look at that, it's available. If you have questions, you can see in the timeline over the years, but you can always available to call the manager and or Mr. Lewis. So with that, if there's any comments or questions on adopting, this is a offer action to move to adopt. Councilwoman Germaini.
I will move to adopt the proposed fiscal year 2026 to 2032 capital improvements program budget.
Support.
Motion by Councilwoman Germaini, supported by Councilwoman Stringham to approve on item 5704, fiscal year 2026-2032 capital improvement program budget. Clerk, please call the roll.
Stilgrave?
Yes.
Vining?
Yes.
Germaini?
Yes.
Stringham?
Yes.
Mayor Clark?
Yes. Next item, please.
The next item is 5713, storm sewer relining outlet from Armitage Drive.
Thank you. Manager Robinson.
Yes, Your Honor. If you remember, we've had this item come before us back in the fall. In September of 25, we received 3 inches of rainfall in a very short period of time, and there was some serious, impactful flooding that occurred on Armitage between Crampton and Passon Drive. And we had come to you in October because of the acute location that this sewer is located. It is at the rear of people's yards, and it's not a dedicated alleyway. It's an easement, but not a dedicated alleyway, but it's very difficult to get in there. So we came to you in October to ask for funding, to authorize funding for us to do $25,000 worth of exploratory digging and repairs that we could find, to at least find what the problem was. And we had actually contracted with Salem Bean Trunking and Excavating a deed in order to do this work. But prior to the work, our wastewater department was assisted with their television, their televising of the line. They were able to send a camera through there, and they located a very, very large root ball. And the root ball was it was completely blocking that sewer line. And so we were able to get Visu Sewer, who came through. They were able to cut and clear all the tree roots out of that sewer line. So in essence, we didn't end up having to do the exploratory dig, but because of the nature of that and because there was those roots that were coming into those lines, we are now seeking to go ahead and have Visu to go through and actually do the relining of about 130 feet of that storm sewer line, which will seal the pipes and make the root intrusion highly unlikely for many years to come. So actually, even though we were allocated to do $25,000 worth of work, we didn't need it because we ended up being able to through the equipment that you approved for us for the televised, the ability to televise all these water lines and water mains and sewer lines, we're able to get that issue rectified for the residents there. But we are asking that in this time, we are asking for you for a change order of their work in the amount of $13,540. However, with the 15% contingency, it results over $15,000, which is then required by council to approve. And that would be for us to go ahead and do the sewer lining of that project.
Thank you. Any questions from City Council on this item? Seeing none, this is up for action, for motion.
Your Honor.
Councilman Stringham?
I move that a change order to the Woodland Beach sanitary sewer lining project be awarded to Visu Sewer LLC in the amount of $13,540 for lining of the storm sewer outlet from Armitage Drive, that a total of $15,600 to be encumbered to include a 15% contingency, and that the Director of Engineering and Public Services, Interim Director of Water and Wastewater Utilities be authorized to execute the change order on behalf of the city.
Second.
There's a motion by Councilwoman Stringham, supported by Councilwoman Stillgrave on item 5713, the storm sewer relining outlet from Armitage Drain. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Steelgrave? Yes. Vining?
Yes.
Jermaine?
Yes.
Stringham?
Yes.
Mayor Clark?
Yes. Next item, please.
The next item is 5714, Water Filtration Plant, GAC and UV Disinfection Design Report and Project Plan.
Thank you. Manager Robinson.
Yes, Your Honor, in this one, I'd like to invite the interim utilities director and city engineer. Due to the number of acronyms and science that's in this, I think he will be a much better job at succinctly explaining what this is over me.
I don't think that all fits on his business card, but go ahead. Mr. Lewis.
One with all the big words on it. Honorable Mayor and Council and Clerk Treasurer, Patrick Lewis, Director of Engineering and Public Services and Interim Director of Water and Wastewater Utilities. You just approved the CIP a few minutes ago, and we're already putting it to some good use because this is a $90,000 cost that was included in the CIP, and that is moving forward on the next step on in the PFAS treatment process. I won't go into all the nitty-gritty details, but basically, right now we are below the action levels on any of the PFAS chemicals, but like with many regulatory agencies, they're continuing to drop those levels lower and lower. So we're anticipating that we're going to need to implement a new treatment process for that at our water filtration plant. And so as part of the CIP, we did ask for $90,000 for a project plan. And that project plan basically was a result of an earlier study that identified a treatment process which we think will be effective there. It's basically called the granular activated carbon process, and that's something that basically the next step in this project plan is we're going to look at the most effective way to implement that as part of our treatment process as far as at the filtration step. Second leg of the stool is we're also looking at a UV treatment process for our backup. There was a time when we were able to treat river water and use that as our backup if there was an interruption of service from the main intake line that comes from Point-au-Po. However, due to high bacteria levels, that's not feasible. But in order to make that possible again, we're looking at a UV treatment process that could be implemented if we ever needed to use that backup source. So that's the second part of this as well, and in that project plan. We're asking for an award to Jones and Henry Engineers. We are asking for a sole source to waive the professional services process because Jones and Henry is acting essentially as a de facto our in-house consultant for our treatment plant, and given their familiarity with it, we would like to go ahead with them. The main reason we're pushing it so fast, since we just approved the CIP, which doesn't technically go into effect until July 1st, is that there are opportunities to potentially get some outside funding. The first cycle through the state's Drinking Water Revolving Fund, project plans are due in June. And so if we jump on this, we may have the opportunity to get funding on the first cycle. Usually we fare better the earlier we are, because I like to say we have our act together quicker than most entities do. So we probably have a better chance at outside funding the earlier we are in. So if we don't get funding this cycle, we can always put in for it the next cycle. And like we said, there's no real knowledge yet of when those lower standards might be implemented, but we believe they are coming. And we want to take advantage of it if we possibly can. So I think I'm going to leave it at that. I won't pronounce all the PFAS, what that is, but basically they're the forever chemicals. I will say that this initial part of this is funded. We have received some settlement monies from the various chemical companies that have settled in this, and we're receiving some of those monies, and Mr. Sell could probably tell you exactly when those are going to hit. I'm not even sure we know yet. We will at some point have to take out a bond because this treatment process will be fairly expensive and extensive, but as those settlement monies come in to offset those, it will not be fully funded by the city. It'll be funded through outside settlement funds. In what proportion, we don't yet know for sure. So long ways down the road, but we're trying to get outside money, and that's why we want to push this plan up tonight.
So thank you. Any questions for Mr. Lewis? Yes, Councilwoman Vining.
Thank you. Mr. Lewis, I missed it. Could you explain to me again why you wanted to have the professional service solicitation waived?
Jones and Henry has done most of our plant work over the last decade. They're intimately familiar with the processes. They were selected initially through cost competitive proposals. They're very, very well known in the industry. It's like everything else. There's a learning curve, and the more different firms you get involved in that, the more you're backing up, having to explain things. We just feel very comfortable with their performance to date, and we've had a long-standing relationship with them. So that's primarily the reason. Yep.
Other questions from council or comments? Seeing none, this item is up for council action for motion and support.
Your Honor.
Oh, Councilwoman Stringham.
I move that a professional services agreement in the amount of $87,300 be awarded to Jones and Henry Engineers Ltd., that a total of $90,000 be encumbered to include a small contingency, that the formal professional services solicitation process be waived, that the Director of Engineering and Public Services, Interim Director of Water and Wastewater Utilities be authorized to sign any agreements on behalf of the City of Monroe, and that the Director of Finance, Assistant City Manager be authorized to set up any necessary project accounts and make any necessary budget amendments and transfers, including from water fund reserves.
Second.
This is a motion by Councilwoman Stringham, supported by Councilwoman Germania. Item 5714, the water filtration plant GAC and UV disinfection design report and project plan. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Steelgrave?
Yes.
Vining?
Yes.
Germaini?
Yes.
Stringham?
Yes.
Mayor Clark?
Yes. Next item, please.
The next item is item 5705, Professional Services Agreement with Kohler Architecture for the Center 2.0 project.
Manager Robinson.
Yes, Your Honor. Director Cochran will explain how we came about through this, the professional services agreement with Kohler Architecture for this project.
Thank you. Director Cochran.
Yep. Good evening, Honorable Mayor, City Council, Clerk Treasurer Lavoy. So as a follow-up to our discussion earlier tonight about preparing to move into the expansion at the existing ALCC, we're already looking forward to phase 2. So City Council may recall that we were awarded $250,000 from the Ralph Wilson Foundation to begin planning for phase 2 of this project that is going to include the site of the existing Learning Bank building and the vacant land in between. The intent with this project is to develop the schematic design for a new multi-purpose facility that would be the permanent home of Joe's Boxing Club, as well as space for multicultural and multi-purpose programming. And then the second phase is, or the second portion of this project is for the schematic design, as well as the construction design and beginning construction on the Culinary Entrepreneurship Plaza that would include, for lack of a better term, food trucks or culinary units built out of storage containers, shipping containers, sorry. And so we did go out to bid. We issued a request for proposal, and we had 5 firms respond. And we did have an interview panel that reviewed the firms. And ultimately, they're recommending that we select the city council award the bid to Kohler Architects for multiple reasons. One is they were the low bidder. They were the lowest proposal. And out of that $250,000, the intent was to spend as little as on design so we could spend more on construction and move immediately into construction once the existing learning bank is demolished later this summer. The low bidder, their familiarity with the neighborhood, their familiarity with the community, as well as the community engagement plan that they had submitted as part of the proposal. So in all of our activities, as a follow-up to City Council's goals and objectives, including community engagement in projects that impact the neighborhood. So with this, they developed a comprehensive plan whereby we would get input from stakeholder groups as well as the neighborhood and what the ultimate design of this looks like. So with that, we're recommending City Council award the project to Kohler Architecture, and we'll get started on that project immediately.
Any questions for Mr. Cochran or comments? If not, Councilwoman Vining.
So, I'm excited about the thoughtful investment that's going into the community and the new amenities coming into the neighborhood. But I am concerned about, I guess I need clarification on how we go about these RFPs, because either I missed it because I wasn't in attendance or wasn't paying attention, but I don't recall knowing that the RFPs were going out. And then here today, we're asking to award a contract to Kohler, but I don't even know what the other other submissions look like, what some of their ideas were. I see here that there was a committee comprised, according to the fact sheet, comprised of city staff, representatives from the Community Foundation of Monroe County, and Community Reimagine, who conducted the interviews. And at some point, they were narrowed down from 5 firms to 3. So I don't know who narrowed it down from 5 to 3. I don't know who any of the firms were who submitted. I don't know who exactly served on the interview committees, their names, their roles. When projects of this large scale, millions of dollars, as a council person, especially as the representative for the precinct that this is being built on, I don't want to hear these things outside of this setting and not know the answer to some of these questions. So, I don't know is it customary to get this far in a process on a project of this scale and present this to the council for to take a vote on, and I don't have information about what the other firms offered. I hear you say they're the lowest bidder, but I haven't seen anything with my own eyes. I personally don't know if I'm prepared to vote on this one way or another this evening, because I don't feel I have all the information that I would need to make a decision like that. I understand that we use Kohler a lot. It's not a personal attack against Kohler, but I've discussed this in the past and I've heard other council members state that we want to be made aware of these type of things before it just shows up on an agenda. So actually, I have several questions that go deeper into this entire project. I won't take the time to ask them. I'll send you an email
Sure.
and copy the city manager on that.
Director Cochran, any follow-up comments?
Sure. So when we first were awarded the grant with $250,000, when council accepted that, is when we discussed the next steps would be to issue a request for proposal for a firm that would work on the project itself. So I believe that was probably October, November-ish. And so the committee was established based on the folks who helped us secure that grant. So Val Orr, the executive director with the Community Foundation of Monroe County, is the one who has really worked hard to cultivate ties with Ralph C. Wilson and helped us secure the grant when she brought them down to the community to hear about the project and the vision for the campus and the next phase of the project. And so we thought it was only fair to her, given her connection with helping to bring the funds to our community, that she would represent the funder well on the committee to make sure that we're following what the funds were intended to be used for. In terms of the Community Reimagined, they had expressed an interest in helping move this project forward and helping to operate the project. And so that's why they were suggested to serve on the review committee. So the committee was myself, Val, Stephanie Kasperzak, and Aaron Lavender with Community Reimagined, Matt Vanasacker and Maria Suffredini from our office. Patrick Lewis was also engaged in that project. And so we had set up with the RFP that was issued what the scoring criteria for that was going to be. And that's what the different proposals were scored against, similar to how we handle other professional services contracts that go out to bid.
Is it possible for council to review the submitted proposals and the scoring documentation?
Sure.
Yes. I'd like to see that.
Other questions or comments? I'll just say, I know that there's many records and documents we receive. I do recall some of the conversations on the grant. You know, as we've developed within the Orchard East community, from the community center to with the library, the learning bank, we've had discussion about how and where we go next. I understand the councilwoman's questions about the scoring and the process for selection, but I know that we've visions, you know, the original, I can say the original plan we had was through color, and it included that within the original plan, as we all recall, and that's been a couple of years or more now. But we had to scale back that process because we couldn't do the extension for what we're talking about today. And so it goes back a while that we've talked about how do we expand through there. And so we focused on what the revenues we had and the timelines as they go. And things always cost more than when you get the money, because if it takes 2 years, things cost more. And that's how the conversation that I recall on the grant last fall, and the council accepting it. So I understand as far as the scoring in that, but I guess I know that how we've approved things or saw things in the past as far as the, you know, with the staff. But this item is up for council action, and that requires a motion, second, and a vote. Councilwoman Germaine.
I'll make a motion, move to award a professional services contract to Kohler Architecture for $90,000 for the professional services design work for the Center 2.0 project, plus a 10% contingency for a total amount not to exceed $99,000. That the Assistant City Manager, Director of Economic and Community Development, be authorized to execute any necessary agreements on behalf of the city.
Second.
Motion from Councilwoman Germaine, supported by Councilwoman Steelgrave on item 5705, the professional service agreement with Kohler Architect for the Center 2.0 project. Before we take a vote, I want to look to Mr. Buds. Of course, this is a professional service contract, and the voting requirement to pass is 5, if I recall.
It would be 2/3 of the total, so yes, you would need 5.
Very good. With that, there's a motion and a second. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Steelgrave?
Yes.
Vining?
No.
Germaine?
Yes.
Stringer?
Yes.
Mayor Clark?
Yes. The motion does not pass. It requires 5 votes. Clerk, next item, please.
The next item is the addition from the consent agenda, the item that was pulled, 5711, resolution for approval of non-union employment agreement.
Manager Robinson.
Yes, Your Honor. This is 5711, correct,
Yes.
Clerk? Yeah, 5711, Your Honor and Counsel, is the non-union employment agreement as Patrick Lewis is serving as the interim director of the interim utilities director, as well as his director of engineering and public services. As we have done in the past, we are, being it's a non-union contract, this too requires 5 votes, if I understand things correctly. So as we pulled this from the consent agenda, this way we get the actual 5 votes that would be from the council itself, like we would, as I've been advised, is what is expected with employment agreements.
And I think one of the reasons it was on consent agenda, we pulled it from the consent agenda because there was an update that was provided to council, and I know it's provided to the clerk, which will be on the record if somebody would have read it earlier when first posted, but and it's under item 2 or section 2 on the employment agreement that has been shared and discussed with council and is available online. It was actually available early this morning, actually, I believe.
Yes.
So any questions from council? Seeing no questions, there's a motion for this item.
Your Honor.
711. Councilwoman Stringham.
Resolution of a non-union employment agreement.
Motion by Councilwoman Stringer, supported by Councilwoman Germaini on item 5711, a resolution for the approval of the non-union employment agreement as stated. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Steelgrave?
Yes.
Vining?
Yes.
Germaini?
Yes.
Stringham?
Yes.
Mayor Clark?
Yes. Next item, please.
The next item is 5712, resolution for approval of non-union employment agreement.
Thank you. Manager Robinson?
Your Honor, this too is a non-union employment agreement for the rehirement, based after rehirement of Director Stolstedt as the Director of Public Safety. This too was, council was updated this morning. As we looked through the agreement, there was a section 2 that there was better verbiage that we felt was more appropriate in defining the position and the responsibilities, and that has been sent out and rectified, and council has copies of that new version now, and we're asking that council approve this agreement.
Add to that, the position description in detail was also
Yes.
added as well, so I
Yeah.
appreciate that. Any questions or comments from council? Seeing none, it's up for Councilwoman Germaini.
Move to approve the resolution of a non-union employment agreement, 5712.
There's a motion by Councilwoman Germaini, supported by Councilwoman Steelgrave on item 5712, the resolution to approve the non-union employment agreement as was stated by Manager Robinson. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Steelgrave? Vining? Germaini?
Yes.
Stringham?
Yes.
Mayor Clark?
Yes. And next item, please.
Next item is 5671, resolution for approval of non-union employment agreement.
Thank you, Manager Robinson.
Again, Your Honor and Council, this again is almost exactly like the previous item. It was the changing of some verbiage in section number 2, and we're asking for your approval in this non-union employment agreement.
And with that adjustment was also the position description and details of what that entails for the council and for those that can access and see those as well. Any comments or questions from council? Seeing none, the motion is Councilwoman Stringham.
I'll move to approve the resolution of a non-union employment agreement.
Second.
Motion by Councilwoman Stringham, supported by Councilwoman Germaini on item 5671, Resolution to approve the non-union employment agreement as stated by the manager and the position. Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes.
Vining.
Yeah.
Jermaine.
Yes.
Stringham. Mayor Clark.
Yes. Next item, please.
Items this evening.
It's council comments. And, oh, it's still February. Councilwoman Stringham. I'm sorry, it's Stillgrave. I look that way.
Remind everyone that this Friday is a spaghetti dinner for Paula's house at Grace Lutheran Church, starting at 5 o'clock. That's all I have.
Councilwoman Vining.
No comment this evening, Your Honor.
Thank you. Councilwoman Germaine.
Thank you, Your Honor. I just want to remind everyone that this Thursday from 4 to 7, MDOT will be holding an open house here in council chambers about the Elm Street exit on the expressway. So anybody who has questions or concerns, they can come and speak, ask the question, and hopefully get an answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Stringham.
Looking forward to Thursday to learn more, so hopefully we see a few people join us that night. Also, tomorrow, on Wednesday, the 18th, is refinishing old house woodwork and furniture. And I know we have a lot of old houses in this community, so hopefully we have a few people that are learning how they can improve and refinish their old house. Thank you.
Thank you. You know, I'll just follow up to that on it's through the Historic District Commission, and they're doing many more programs. They're starting with a regular schedule. They did one on how to strip paint from wood. That was very informative, and I think this one will also be informative as well, how to and restoration and that. So I have one other item I think about as we, as a community and here and across the nation. You know, we have many people that I think about their legacy and their service in our communities. And today a person that pioneered much achievements through our country with Reverend Jesse Jackson passing away here today. And I think about that, and I think about what he stood for and how he brought things forward. Sure, he wasn't always liked by some, but I think what he did for us and put foundation, and he had a way to bring people together. So I just think about that. I think about that from my very early years and even through on past that. So I just wanted to share that with others that may not have known or heard about that. Clerk LaVoy.
I have no comments this evening.
Okay. Manager Robinson.
I have no comments this evening.
Thank you. So this time, citizens' comments. If there's those present here this evening who wish to speak, please come to the podium, state your name, or jurisdiction of residence, and mindful of the rules of the chamber of 3 minutes. Yes, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. My name is Jeffrey Albergo, Frenchtown, and I'm with the Robert Duncanson Society, and I'm also with the Monroe County Historic Society. And it's Black History Month, as we all know, and I just wanted to stop by and remind you that we had one of the greatest Black artists in the world living here, right here in Monroe. He lived here from 1828 to 1872. He resides over at Woodland Cemetery right now. And I remember a few years back, the council did a proclamation to make July 7th, 2021 Robert Duncanson Day. And what I would propose is that we make that a permanent resolution or proclamation to dedicate one day a year as Robert Duncanson Day in Monroe. Be it either in February, where it's Black History Month, or like close to Juneteenth, because of all of the abolition work he did. He was a big abolitionist. donated tons of his paintings to the cause and promoted the abolition cause, not only here in the United States, but all over Europe when he toured in Europe. And sometimes, I look at this city and I think we undervalue the history in this city. And when you look at some towns, like Fredericksburg, Virginia, their whole town is based on history. And when I look at Monroe's history, I would bet that there is more history in this county than there is in any other district in this country. Because we have the War of 1812, we had more people in the Civil War than any other county in the country. We had people like Robert Duncanson. We have Elizabeth that wrote The Little Brown Bear, which is a huge, huge children's book. And we need, as a city, to promote our history a little more than what we do. And by proclaiming one day a year as Robert Duncanson Day, it's going to put that on our city calendar. It's going to put it into our schools, and it'll help put it into our libraries as something on their agenda. And that is going to filter out. On March 28th, I was asked to go to Oakland University to help with a presentation on Robert Duncanson for the Michigan Historic Society. They have a yearly conference. It's a 2-day conference. And I was asked to come and help them with that. And one of the things was that we had to present stuff about Monroe that was in his past. And I'm going to be out there promoting Robert Duncanson in Monroe like I always do. So I would put that up to the council to maybe look into this, and maybe we can get this done.
Thank you, Jeff. At your
Thank you,
time,
Mayor.
We'll take that consideration. Thank you. Are those comments from others that are present here this evening? Other comments? Seeing no other comments, I just want to make a follow-up comment, I guess, to Jeff's presentation. I know that there's also work and organization moving forward regarding a Robert S. Duncanson kind of monument statue that I know that's being not only discussed but also moving forward, and look forward to that information in the future as well. Seeing no other comments, we have yet more work to do, and Councilwoman Stilgrave?
That we enter into closed session for the purpose of land acquisition, attorney-client communication, and matters of pending litigation involving Brown, Bibb, Breyer, and Jim's Towing.
Motion from Councilwoman Stilgrave, supported by Councilwoman Jermaine, to go into closed executive session for the items stated. Clerk, please call the roll.
Chris?
Yes.
Vining?
Yes.
Jermaine?
Yes.
Stringham?
Yes.
Mayor Clark?
Yes. And thank you all for being here.